AM 1460, the new WXBR. Peter Zimbor here with you on this Thursday morning. Joined in studio this morning by Paul Koch, the pitching coach for the Brockton Rocks. Paul, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Paul, how are you enjoying your stay in Brockton thus far as a pitching coach for the Brockton Rocks? And tell us where you originally came from, and I think we'll get to the many places you have been, your various travels in your life as a journeyman baseball guy.
Well, this summer has been a great experience. It's good to be back in the States and working with players at this level.
Is this your first year in Brockton?
I was in Brockton for about 3 weeks last summer as an assistant coach. My home stay last summer was a little bit shorter. This summer, after the experience I had last summer, we went ahead and my wife and I decided that this would be a good move for me to come back and do this for the summer, and it's been great.
Now, where were you where your wife wanted you to come to Brockton? Because it's my understanding you have been to some interesting places in regards to your baseball travels far abroad.
Yes. Currently, my family and I live in Beijing, China, and that's there's lots to tell about that.
How did you end up in Beijing, China, and where are you originally from? Because you don't appear Chinese to me whatsoever.
I grew up in Philadelphia, cursed as a Phillies fan, I guess, and then moved and went to school at James Madison University in Virginia, and stayed in Virginia pretty much until 3 years ago. My wife's career gave us the opportunity to move to Beijing, so we've been there for 2.5 years. We'll stay for 1 more year, rounding out her tour with the State Department, and it was a big decision to go, and it's going to be an interesting another year there, and then we'll come back and get our feet back on the ground in the U.S.
What's your wife's career that brought her to China?
She's a network specialist at the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, so she does computer networking.
Once again, we're chatting with Paul Koch here on AM 1460, the new WXBR Brockton Rocks pitching coach. Originally from Philadelphia, what are your baseball origins? How did you get involved in the game as a pitching coach? I assume that it started out as a player first.
Yeah, I played, of course, like most people played growing up all through my youth. My dad took us out in the backyard and played catch, and eventually I got to the point where I got a chance to play college baseball, and played at James Madison. And then when my career ended there, I started as a high school baseball coach, and my first job in Virginia was at James River High School down in Richmond area. And I was there for 3 or 4 years, and then moved up to Northern Virginia in the D.C. area after I met my wife. Had 2 other high school jobs there. And during that time is when I kind of crossed into this college summer league experience. So during my Virginia time, I did about 10 years as the manager of a team in the Valley League, which is a similar league to the FCBL that we play in.
So whereas a lot of people involved with the Brockton Rocks seem to have some origins with minor league baseball to some degree, not you. You have been a coach from a professional standpoint your entire professional baseball life?
Yes. I'm I'm a baseball coach.
Once again, we're chatting with Paul Koch here on AM 1460, the new WXBR Brockton Rocks pitching coach. A lot of folks are still becoming acquainted with what Brockton Rocks baseball is 2013. Tell us about this Futures Collegiate Baseball League that the Brockton Rocks are a part of. Describe it in a nutshell for the folks. It's a wooden bat league consisting of college players from essentially surrounding states and surrounding communities.
Right. We extend also, our core of our roster is local players or from local schools. We extend a little bit and have some guys that are brought in from other parts of the country. But like many summer leagues around the country, it's great baseball. We have every night you see outstanding pitching, every lineup.
Well, you hope so, right?
Well, I hope ours is outstanding. But the other teams, throughout the league, there's good pitching every night. There's good baseball. You don't. People don't realize, I think, until they come out to the ballpark and say, "Oh my goodness, look what's going on here! This is pretty fantastic level of baseball that they're seeing."
Now, we mentioned that your wife's career brought you to Beijing, China, but while you're in Beijing, China, do you stay in tune with what is America's game from a professional standpoint?
Oh man, I try. Certainly, from a professional standpoint, when I got there, I had no job. I mean, that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my career was leave the team, my team in Virginia, and say goodbye, guys. I'm moving to China. And then I got there, and I had no idea what I was going to do with myself. And
you have no job. You're bored. You're like, who do I hang out with in China?
Exactly. I got there, and I had nothing going on. So I actually started reaching out on social networking, Twitter mostly, and I said, hey, anybody know anything about the baseball situation in Beijing? And I had one person say, hey, you should get in touch with this organization, Sports Beijing. And so I reached out to them, had a face-to-face, and they said, oh, we don't have anybody who can coach baseball in Beijing. We don't know anybody, can't find anybody. And I said, well, let me have a run at it. So I started a youth baseball program, and it started with about 25 or 30 players, ages 5 all the way up to 15 or so. And it was sort of a clinic atmosphere, just teaching the basic elements of the game. And now it's over 200 players every week. Every weekend we have clinics every weekend, and we have now we've graduated to having groups of those players pulled out, and they play game situations. We find local Chinese teams to play, and most of our players are expatriates. Some Chinese players, but mostly expat children that are trying to learn baseball, because it's not on TV there. It's not culturally relevant there right now, and I think they're looking for it's kind of grassroots. I'm trying to help grow that.
You said something interesting moments ago, that you reached out to your friends on Twitter from China, talking about what the current baseball scene was like in China. I'd had some friends who had went to China in Macau, which I don't know how much different that is from Beijing, and I thought that Twitter was essentially banned by the Chinese government.
It is. I was in America when I reached out on Twitter. I assumed that the person who responded had a virtual private network or some way that they were using.
Is his name Snowden?
I won't go there. But Macau, I think, is a little different, and Macau and Hong Kong have a little different regulations than mainland China.
So what is the baseball scene in China like since you have arrived?
Well, the youth program is awesome. I'm really proud of it. I find that as hard as it was to say goodbye when I left Virginia, it's in 3 years' time going to be equally hard to look all those kids in the eye and say, sorry, guys, I'm out of here. That's a tough thing to do. The program's really grown. I've also was hired since then to coach the high school baseball team at the school where my sons attend. I have 3 sons, and they go to a school called the International School of Beijing. We call it ISB. And while I was establishing this youth baseball program, they approached me, asked me to help out. The first year, I just helped out the head coach at that point, and then he moved on, and since then I've been coaching that team as well. So I'm starting to see some of that growth in the program, where the kids come up through the youth program and then hopefully develop into a player that could play at the high school level. It's interesting though, because there's so much transience in that sort of environment. People just turnover, and it's hard to, it's hard to keep it steady, and that's something. I mean, even we'll be leaving at the end of next year, kind of no matter what. There's no other say in that.
How'd your kids like the move to China? What were their thoughts on it initially?
My oldest didn't want to go, and I think he's not going to want to leave. The other 2 are a little younger. They just rolled with it, and now they want to stay in China longer, but we're going to come home. And it's been a just incredible experience. The language, the culture, and just being immersed in things that really you never even could imagine unless, you've read books about it. And beyond a book, you can't really explain it. And And so that's one of the things that I find every day. I try to look at the adventure that we're on as opposed to the difficulties of living there. A lot of people who go there who aren't Chinese, they say, wow, it's really hard to live here for various reasons. And I try to look at the other side and say, hey, we're on an adventure today, and try to express that to my children, and my wife looks at it that way also. And I think that attitude has been what's made it a great experience for us.
Earlier I alluded to the fact that when you first got there, you had no job. You probably were bored saying, who do I hang out with? What do I do? So who do you hang out with, and what do you do in Beijing, China?
Well, we have a good network of people. We live in a community that has a lot of U.S. embassy families. So there are a lot of other U.S. citizens that my kids go to school with, that we hang out with. But I like to branch out beyond that. I have a lot of friends in the school where the kids go to school, other teachers, coaches who I hang out with. And then, I think one of the biggest benefits of being there is that I hang out with my family. And in our life in Virginia, it seemed like we're always pulled in a lot of directions, and I think that's kind of the American way. You're always going, and it's great to be busy and have things to do. But when we're in River Gardens, which is the neighborhood we live in, sometimes, hey, it's just us, and we find our way together and spend a lot more quality time as a family than I remember doing when we were in Virginia, and it's nice to have that opportunity.
I knew a guy that went to China, and he spent about a week there. And he said after about a week, he heard a rumor that a few miles down the road there was a McDonald's. And he walked to that McDonald's, and he enjoyed the best McDouble and McFlurry he'd ever had in his life. What do you eat in China? What's life like from just general stuff that we do here in America?
I'm surprised that it was a mile away, because
there was a few miles away.
There are lots of McDonald's around now, and Starbucks, and all of those sort of the American things that you see are starting to show up there in great number. But we try to eat locally. We shop at the local markets. We eat street food, noodles, and the best noodles you could ever buy cost 5 kwai, which is about $1.
Can you really buy the live chicken off the street, or is that just in movies?
You can buy the live chicken off the street. In fact, we go to a market near our home called Hohai Market, and there's a guy that has a van. It's like a broken down van, and when you want to buy a chicken, he'll open the van and pull a live chicken out of the van, and I think they would probably butcher it for you there, but we don't buy our chicken that way, but you can buy it that way.
You never been tempted just for the experience?
Nah, never been tempted for the experience.
You listen to AM 1460, the new WXBR. We're going to chat with you a little bit further about your experiences in Brockton as opposed to Beijing, China. In the next segment, you're going to stick around with us, right?
Sure.
You're listening to the Metro South Morning Show here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. Peter Zimborn and Mike Pava here with you on a Thursday morning. Stick with us. AM 1460, the new WXBR. Peter Zimborn and Mike Pava here with you on a Thursday morning. Joined in studio this morning by Paul Koch, pitching coach for Brockton Rocks Baseball. We're chatting about your current living arrangements in China as opposed to Brockton, where you're now living for the summer and working as a member of the Brockton Rocks. Is the family still back in Beijing while you're here working in Brockton?
Yes, they are back in Beijing, but thankfully coming home on a flight from Beijing tomorrow, and they'll at least we'll be on the same continent for a few weeks. I'm going to meet the family in Torrington. We have a road game next week in Torrington, and they're going to come up, and we'll get to spend a few hours together at least.
What's that one Americanized thing that you can only get in America that as soon as you touch down in Brockton you kind of went for?
Let's see. The one thing, for me, I'm from Philly. I wanted a Philly cheesesteak, and I called my parents. They live in Philadelphia, and they met us in Torrington last time we went up there and brought a big Philly cheesesteak, and that was one of the things that I really had to have. So
they don't make them quite like that in Beijing, do they?
No, sir.
Once again, we're chatting with Paul Koch here on AM 1460, the new WXBR Brockton Rocks pitching coach. Describe your experience as a member of the Brockton Rocks thus far as their pitching coach. How has the season gone, both from a personal perspective for you being in the community and working here, and from a professional perspective with how the team is gelling and with how the pitchers that you're coaching are taking to your advice?
Well, first of all, the pitchers have been outstanding. I mean, we try to stay organized, meaning that the guys know where their roles are, and then run them out there and let them do their thing. Those guys are here to get better, are here to get experience, and we want to send them back to their schools a little bit better than they were when they came. But for the most part, it's experience, and I've had a great experience working with the pitchers that we have. We have a great staff. I think we're second in ERA right now, and trying to make a push for that top spot. So our guys have been doing a great job on the mound. Makes my job pretty easy. I shake their hand and say, "Go get them," and then they go do their thing, and then just try to provide whatever support they need in between starts or in between outings to make sure that they're on pace for their next outing. So they make my job easy, and they're a lot of fun to work with. They're a great bunch of guys, great personality, great attitudes, and it's nice to have that, because in the summer it's not always that case, and in our case we have a great group of kids.
When you take a look at the various pitchers you're working with this season, is there anyone that stands out as potentially someone we could see suiting up in the major league someday?
That's a long way away, and that's hard to say, but a lot happens between now and then. But certainly we have guys who have the velocity that you see on TV. We have guys that have the mental makeup that you see on TV. It's just that the number of things that have to go right for that to happen. There's a lot that has to happen. But certainly, I think we have guys that hopefully will be there someday.
So many variables in the process from being a prospect to actually making the major leagues. It's insane. Major League Baseball is the one sport where its draft is unwatchable because there's like hundreds of rounds, and you don't know what's going to happen to these guys. They're going to fall into some weird farm team somewhere you've never heard of.
Right.
Playing for the Iowa Barons something, I don't know.
You're right. It's a big pyramid, and so there are a lot of guys at the bottom of that pyramid, and it just keeps getting smaller and smaller. And I know these guys and the guys that I've coached in college summer leagues throughout my career, they all still have the dream. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so exciting, is that as amateur players, they are still chasing the dream. And, you see guys that are really working at their craft and trying to, just trying to get to the next step, not trying to jump all the way up there, but just take the next step. And it's exciting to see this group. They do the same thing. They work hard.
This weekend, the Brockton Rocks will be at home on Sunday against Old Orchard Beach. What's your favorite place to travel and play against within the Futures Collegiate Baseball League? Because it seems like the Rocks play against a lot of teams within driving distance, but in surrounding states to Massachusetts.
Yeah,
on the opposite side of Massachusetts.
Yeah, I think I really like the stadium at Pittsfield. It's cool. It's like an old timey stadium. It's a beautiful place, but the bugs are bad. I think honestly, I think a lot of other opposing teams love coming to Brockton because the setup is so nice. It's a great place to go to work every day. It's just from a coaching standpoint, you have a nice clubhouse. You have the crowd. It's those things make it really nice, and I think our opponents like coming to our place. But definitely Pittsfield is a nice place, and it's always kind of nice to go to Martha's Vineyard.
You take the ferry over?
We have to go a lot, so I'm not saying it's nice to go a lot, but it's nice to go a couple times. And the first trip is kind of a novelty to a lot of the guys. They've never done it before, and we get on take the bus to the ferry over, bus to the game, get back. It's a little late for the ferry, so we have to take the Patriot, which is a charter boat, back across and get on a boat. And it's a long day, and it's a neat experience. And I think the first and second time was a lot of fun for the guys, and third, fourth, fifth, 6th. I don't know. Maybe.
There was a cool car commercial airing a few years ago during Sunday Night Football on NBC that followed the Martha's Vineyard High School football team as they traveled to play, always taking the ferry back and forth. They couldn't play anyone in their own island. They were the only school.
Yeah.
It's got to be quite the experience that gets a little bit, after a while you have to endure it.
Yeah, certainly. I know, one of my best friends in the world is our associate head coach, Ted Curley, and Ted had a summer down there also. And I know for the opponents that have to do that 6 times a year, that's one thing, but man, that team has to do it every night, and that's quite a task. But they're playing great right now. We'll see tonight if we can figure them out. They've had our number all year.
So how has the Brockton Rock season gone thus far?
We've been up and down, and I think now we kind of understand our identity as a team. If we have a good start on the mound and we don't make errors, we're going to be okay. But we've had some instances where things have snowballed. We don't have a great start on the mound. We walk too many guys and make errors, and then we're in a bit too much of a hole for our offense to climb out of. But our formula, I think, is to get a decent start where we don't get behind by a bunch, and our bullpen tends to keep us in the game. And I think we can win games if we have a lead late. We have a pretty stout bullpen, but our problems have come when we've fallen behind too much that our offense can't quite catch up.
Traditionally, the Brockton Rocks were one team when they were an independent league, minor league team that had amongst the biggest fan bases in that league. It seems to be still the case with the Futures Collegiate Baseball League, though the actual numbers have diminished in terms of attendance. What's the fanfare like that you've exhibited or that you've seen exhibited from the folks here in Brockton since you've been here?
Oh, it's a nice atmosphere. I mean, the Friday nights are always exciting. They're a huge crowd. I hope we start playing better on Friday nights in front of the big crowd because we've stumbled the last 2, I think. But huge crowd, people are into it, excited, and that's fun. Last night I don't think we had a huge crowd, maybe 1,000 or so, but we had a group over on the side that was just raucous and having a great time. It was a group of maybe 300 or 400 kids, and they were just it gives so much life to the stadium, and it's a great place to play. It's a great place to play for the kids.
You do get some hardcores here and there, right?
Yeah,
I'm sure you know them by name at this point. They know you by name, right?
Yeah, probably. Yes.
Once again, we're chatting with Paul Koch here on AM 1460, the new WXBR pitching coach for Brockton Rocks baseball. What's the experience like of playing in an organization like the Brockton Rocks, where, as opposed to a lot of amateur programs which you've come from, not a lot of them have mascots and the pageantry, the festivities, and the fanfare that Brockton Rocks baseball has?
It's a big difference, and I think it adds that atmosphere adds to the whole baseball experience. It makes it feel right. I had some friends visit last night, and they were, I think they didn't know what I was doing this summer, and they showed up at the game and they said, "This is amazing. This is what you do every night." I said, "This is."
It was KO's birthday party earlier this week.
That is true. That is true. And they were impressed by it. It's a big show, and I know that's a big part of it. We just focus on coaching the baseball players, but it's neat to watch the show go on around you.
I'm sure that adds a little bit to the atmosphere of what you're doing on the field, though.
Of course, yeah, and the crowd gets excited, the players get excited, and that's what we want. We want them keyed up, especially as the dynamics of the game change. They get late in the game and it's a close game. It gets exciting. That helps as a player.
Little less than a month remaining in the regular season for Brockton Rocks Baseball 2013. What can we expect from the Brockton Rocks from here on out? A postseason, you believe, in the future for your team? What are the possibilities of the Rocks winning a championship?
Well, I would say what our goal is to get in the championship game. That's or the championship series.
I was going to say it's a series.
It's a series, yeah.
Okay.
We need to get in that series, and we're, we need to put together another winning streak. We had a great 7-game winning streak going, and then we lost a couple games, but we bounced back, and I think we've learned who we are as a team in that 7-game winning streak and how we should win games. And I'm not saying we're going to go run back another 7. That's pretty tough in this league, but a good 3-game, 4-game winning streak I think would get us in the right direction. So, we take every one at a time, but I think to give the team the confidence that we need going down the stretch, I think that'd be a really good sign if we can rattle off three or 4 games in a row.
What is the playoff structure in this league?
I think this year we're going 6 teams. The bottom 2 have a 1-game playoff, and then after that, the top 4 remaining play best 2 out of 3, and then the best 2 out of 3 for the championship.
So what happens to that team that gets the 5th seed then?
I think those 2. You know what? I'm going to have to double check.
Yeah, because I was going to say there's something not adding up.
There's something. It's something with those. There's 6 teams, but I maybe 1 and 2.
Maybe that's.
I think 1 and 2 get a bye in the first game, and then the others play, and then the 2 left.
I was going to say
play
that
1
5th and 6th. I think that's what it is. Highly sought after.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. 1 and 2 get a bye in the first round. It's a 1-game elimination in the first round.
Well, we're chatting with Paul Koch here on AM 1460, the new WXBR pitching coach for Brockton Rocks baseball. We'll be paying attention to the Brockton Rocks from here on out, seeing how you guys fare in the postseason, which we hope you're a part of. How's working with Judd Thigpen, who is the field manager for the Brockton Rocks we had in the program about a month ago?
Judd's a great guy.
His name is Judd. How cool is that?
It is. I call him Judson. I don't know if that's his name or not, but that's just what I call him. But he's
formalizes him.
Yeah, exactly. Great guy. He's keeps the team, on an even keel all the time. Knows what buttons to push with the guys, and that's the manager's job. Make sure the guys understand when it's time to, in a baseball season that's long. There are always ups and downs, and trying to keep the team in the middle, keep the team even, not too high, not too low, is the manager's role, and he's doing a great job of it.
Where do you see your baseball career from here on forward? Do you think you'll be back with the Brockton Rocks next season, or will you be in China or the Philippines or some other spot that we can't foresee?
Well, I mean, those all sound like delightful options, and I think I'll definitely be back in the U.S. next summer. We're leaving China and coming back to the U.S., and I'd love to come back to Brockton. So we'll see.
Where do you want to see yourself ultimately in your baseball career? Would you like to be coaching at a professional level? You like working with the amateurs? Where do you see yourself ultimately? What's the goal?
I like working with the amateur players. I really enjoy this. I think I could see myself maybe eventually moving into more of a general manager role rather than a field coach role, where it's bringing in the players and helping make.
You like the mechanics of actually building the team?
I do. I like that part of it. But right now I love coaching. I love being on the field, and I feel like I'm best served working with kids.
If we ever go to China, Beijing in particular, what's one thing we have to do while we're there?
You got to step on the Great Wall of China. That was the first thing we did. First weekend we got there, we got in a car, drove up to the Great Wall. It's about a 40-minute drive from my front door, and we've been 20, 30 times since, but that standing up there and just saying, I'm doing something that I never dreamed in my life I would do. I'm standing on the Great Wall of China. It's pretty awesome.
Did you begin living in Beijing post-Olympics or right around the time of the Olympics?
After the Olympics.
After the Olympics,
yeah.
So you missed that whole experience.
Right. I mean, all the buildings are still there, and in fact, my youth baseball teams, they're called the Sports Beijing Dynasty. I have a middle school team and an elementary school age team. We played a tournament this year inside the Bird's Nest, which was the Olympic Stadium. That's pretty notable for, I think, mostly for Usain Bolt setting the world record, but it's pretty awesome.
Well, we've been chatting with Paul Koch, pitching coach for Brockton Rocks baseball here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. I want to mention to the folks, the Brockton Rocks are at home this Sunday against Old Orchard Beach. Monday night, hosting Seacoast. Where's Seacoast from? Where are they? Are they from Massachusetts? Someone's nodding their head, so I assume they're from the Bay State. I didn't know where the Seacoast was. It could be the coast of the sea anywhere, I suppose, right?
I suppose.
Seacoast is from Massachusetts. So good luck the rest of the season from here on out. and we'd love to have you on the program again sometime.
Great. Thanks a lot.
That's Paul Koch joining us here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. We're going to step aside for a quick break. Mike Pava is going to bring us a local news update. Stick with us here on the Metro South Morning Show.